history of the man-made world, one has wondered, what is design? We are surrounded by design. Our entire lives are designed. Everything from the common everyday toothbrush to the space shuttle has been designed. Today we're going to look at a few examples from the world of architecture, fashion and interior design. When one wants to learn from the great masters of design in the 21st century, there's almost no way of avoiding Giorgio Armani and the work that he has created into an institution. You look at the interiors that are being created by Casa Armani today. They're chic, they're elegant, the colors are extremely subtle, the lines are very, very precise. Surgical edges, beautifully crafted, furniture, lights, staircases. There's a mood to it that's very, very subtle. There's an elegance to it that's absolutely timeless, whether we shoot something that's futuristic for today or we go all the way back to breakfast at Tiffany's, it's equally appropriate. And the same can be seen in his clothes. I've worked backwards, but obviously the clothes line came first. And you can see the painstakingly, beautifully crafted garments, the edges, the silhouettes, the textures, the proportions with which he splits the human body from top to bottom. Everything is in perfect balance, in perfect harmony. The same as it is with his furniture inside his interiors. The ambience is absolutely perfect. It's serene, it's sedate, it's subtle, it's graceful, it's elegant, and there's absolutely no imperfection that can be detected. Year after year, decade after decade, whether he uses no color and just uses shimmers and shines and glittery fabrics, or he uses color, how they're balanced with the lights and the darks, the colds and the warms, how the architecture of the garment fits with the movement of the model or the human who will actually buy it, whether he's looking at sci-fi materials or looking at something very traditional. He lets his imagination run wild within his own self-imposed confines of a nouveau traditional way of looking at fashion. To go from one extreme to another magical extreme, one has to look at Alexander McQueen. From his diaphanous ghost-like finale with Kate Moss in a hologram to very, very traditional inspired costumes out of British history. Alexander McQueen's work goes all the way from India to the mountains of Canada, looking at reindeer and their forms. He also looks at structure, he looks at tailoring, he looks at silhouettes in a very different manner to Giorgio Armani, but certainly in his own signature style. He's inspired by politics, he's inspired by social conditioning, by imprisonments of modern philosophies, contemporary values. Alexander McQueen looks at mythical creatures, he looks at art, his work is sculptural. It's ephemeral and in its own way timeless. Talking about fashion designers that work with art, and art that's now bordering on the edge of architecture, there's the inimitable Japanese fashion designer, Issey Miyake. Issey Miyake, many of us know for his pleats. He seems to be enamored by the materiality of his fabric. But if you look at his work more closely, he's also equally enamored by human geometry, and you can see that in his show that took on the origami shapes that were installed onto the models while they walked. You can see the way the architecture of the outfit actually is something that he's inspired by. Issey Miyake is not only a master of material when he looks at how to work with his pleated fabrics. He's looking at universal geometries. He's looking at the square, the cube, the sphere, the prism. He's looking at the relationship between the outer edge of the human form and the inner edge of his fabrics, of his costumes in a sense, of the fashion that he creates. The man is an absolute genius, and talking of geniuses, there is the one and only John Galliano, who used to design for the gigantic fashion house by the name of Dior. His exuberant designs, rich in color, rich in questioning its own proportions, questioning what is expected of fashion, what is expected of the woman, what is expected of the house of Dior. Every collection, one after the other, was fantastic in its own way, from hair and makeup all the way down to the shoes. From the decadence, the exuberance of the house of Dior under John Galliano, one moves quickly forward to Jean-Paul Gaultier, another master in his own right, almost entirely inspired by ethnicity, different cultures. He brings it all into a contemporary idiom, rich in color, texture, silhouette, the same terms that we've been using for the other designers, but in his own way. From one giant house to another, there's Chanel, the genius Karl Lagerfeld, who creates prolifically so much design every year. He has more recently worked with an architect for one of his sets, the famous Zaha Hadid, the Iraqi architect, who is known for her deconstructivism and being one of the early deconstructivist architects. It's really wonderful to see how House of Chanel, something that's as traditional as can be in terms of fashion, works so beautifully together with someone as edgy and almost avant-garde as Zaha Hadid and her work.